Welcome to the Building Web3 Podcast. I have my good friend CK. He's the co-founder at Impossible Cloud. CK, before we get too deep into Impossible Cloud, give us a brief introduction into yourself and how you got into this crypto world building Impossible Cloud.
Sure thing. A beef or a brief introduction?
A brief introduction. Yeah, I must have food on my mind.
No worries. Well, look, I like how it all started. Like I did typical studies. I did a PhD in neuroscience, a postdoc in computational neuroscience. Had a bunch of roles in Silicon Valley startups at Groupon, at Airbnb. I was part of the international rollout, and then moved back to Europe. Had tremendous success here with a company called Good Game Studios. It's a gaming company. In my time there, we surpassed $1 billion revenue with this one game called Good Game Empire. So that was really exciting. We did a NASDAQ reverse IPO with that company into a company called Stillfront Group AB. So I became part of the board there. And so after that, all of this time, we were coming together. We all did our own things and said, what are we doing? What are we going to do next? What really fascinates us? What was the best fun? And I think both Kai, my co-founder, and me, we were both saying the best feeling was that rush of growth within the company. That when those initial years were kind of completed, and then that feeling of like everything vibrates. You're kind of on that rocket ship. That's really that was that feeling that we were aiming for, instead of investing or I don't know, like becoming some other board members or these kind of careers. And we knew it would be another few years of like hardship and seed funding and building ourselves and doing everything ourselves. But it's absolutely worth it. And by now we've reached that point where everything feels like, and it's that's where we are right now. And maybe more specifically, why cloud, why blockchain? I think, well, at Good Game Studios, because of the tremendous success there, we had, I think, in our tenure, in our time there, we must have spent more than $100 million on cloud products of every single cloud that you could possibly imagine. And it's a fascinating business. It's probably one of the fastest growing $1 trillion markets in the world. And but to get in it is hard. It's really, really hard. When you look at success stories, they're usually super, super lengthy and require extreme funding, extreme capex requirements to get into this. And many companies don't actually make it to become a provider like AWS or like the Google Cloud or something, but they then become like a software as a service provider or something like that, because it just requires much less capex. And when we looked into the blockchain economy and all the projects within that, we were really fascinated to see, starting with networks like Bitcoin, that there is this general mechanic of people invest heavily in hardware and get something in return for connecting that hardware to a network. So this is true in general for the Bitcoin network. It's true, of course, for all the projects in the Deepin movement. And this general mechanic is, I think, super, super powerful and has the potential to really revolutionize the internet.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about like the life of a transaction, because I'm sure most people will be familiar with AWS, Google Cloud, but talk to them a little bit about like how this differs when we move to the blockchain. So you talked about how essentially Bitcoin was able to incentivize, people that were not coordinated in some network to buy hardware to plug into the network. Talk to them a little bit about like one, existing clouds, and two, like how it differs for blockchain.
I mean, let's start with the existing clouds. I mean, I think lots can be read about AWS being, of course, the largest of the hyperscaler cloud providers, but also Microsoft or Google. These are the three dominating players in the ecosystem, and essentially for us, we don't even see them necessarily as competition, because for us, they define the market. The market is so big, and these companies and the products are so throughout and everywhere. They kind of define, they kind of set the market standards, rather than be like than our like actual competitors. So how did they start? Well, AWS, they started with selling storage. That was their first product. That's the foundational cloud service. Pretty much nearly all other cloud services use storage in some form. Not all of them use the basic form, but like pretty much all the cloud services use storage in some shape or form. So they started with storage, and then from there built a multi-cloud universe. And then fast forward 20 years or 15 or something, by now why do so many people go to AWS? I think it's a lot of factors. One has to do with trust. Everybody trusts a lot in their ability to deliver and do exactly as we all think they are doing. And the other thing is that they have this wonderful ecosystem of multiple cloud services that all interact perfectly. And how did they get there? Well, they got there over time, growing from storage to compute to GPU compute to all the combinations, growing also in different dimensions, offering software as platforms as a service, offering software as a service, and so on and so forth. So they grew in every direction, and are now these big, giant behemoths that control the internet. And in the last maybe 5 to 10 years or something interesting happened. These cloud, let's call it departments, within these larger constructs, in the construct of Amazon or in the construct of Google, they're essentially they're guarantors for profits, and the profit margins are increasing within, say, AWS, whereas maybe the rest of Amazon is not that profitable, and as a result to the end customer, prices are increasing, and especially in the last few years, I have seen a number of companies. I spoke to many companies that actually go back to on-prem because the cloud costs are so high, which is exactly the opposite of the original promise of the cloud. And that's also where the opportunity comes in for people like us, for the entire Deepin movement. As we said, like the whole setup in the blockchain space or in the Deepin space in particular, is a lot of participants buy hardware connected to a network and operate that hardware and earn tokens as a reward. And what type of work they're doing in the network, this really depends on the network. In the Bitcoin network, it's very debatable whether the work that's actually being done by the individual miner is so helpful to the world. Whereas, within Helium or say Filecoin, or certainly within Impossible Cloud Network, the work that is being done is actually useful cloud operations. So in our case, we focus, we also start with storage, and we focus on really useful cloud operations and reward the hardware partners for that. And I think in a way, like you have to kind of believe it a bit, but the only way to compete with these 20 years of hyper growth at the AWSs of this world is really with a approach of many hardware providers connecting and competing with these companies, because otherwise, if you want to do it all alone, it's extremely difficult. So I hope I answered your question somehow.
No, that's definitely a good answer. So let's talk a little bit about, because when I used to work at Google, there was a lot of concern in all of the cloud providers about uptime. And I think this will be a concern with anyone moving to like what they perceive as like a decentralized cloud, where they like can't necessarily blame AWS or blame Google Cloud. Like, how do you guys kind of incentivize people to stay online? Like I would be concerned if I'm running like some cloud functions that I'm like, oh, well, everything's a cold start. Or talk to them a little bit about like the incentive and how you like maintain really good uptime amongst this like decentralized ecosystem.
It's absolutely a big concern. Also in traditional clouds, it's a big concern. I mean, like we all know these big outages, and then as soon as there's a big outage within the large providers, then you can calculate the percentage or hit on the GDP growth on that quarter. So, what do we do? Well, in a decentralized network, is actually in a way is the perfect answer to really become resistant and resilient against uptime problems. So the number one contributor to downtimes is like a single point of failure. And in a distributed network, you kind of circumvent this single point of failure, and you're instead distributing your operations across many, many nodes. The challenge, of course, is how do you get every node to behave in the way that you want it to behave? And I think there's three answers and three realities that we need to face there. Number one is, of course, you need to incentivize them with like tokens and rewards and these kind of things, and we do that. Other projects do that as well, but it depends a bit on the on the project. In our case, we absolutely and 100% only focus on sort of enterprise grade data centers, rather than sort of individuals computer like your and my computer or something. We cannot connect them to Impossible Cloud Network. We could, however, connect them to some other early Deepin projects. If we take your and my computer, they are probably much less reliable than a data center grade setup, where you have you have every component is there double, every connection is there twice, every server has a backup, and so on and so forth. So these systems are much more resilient, and as such, much more up. And then the last mechanism is, of course, this mechanism of locking collateral that you could lose if you misbehave. And there, the only challenge there is not the mechanism in itself. I think it's pretty clear. You put something at stake, you have so you really don't want to lose it. The mechanism is rather who is the deciding party that says this hardware provider misbehaved and gets slashed, and this hardware provider did not misbehave. And if we as a company were to do this ourselves, then this is a point of centralization yet again. So we have designed this, we call it the Oracle network. So a large network of independent, smaller nodes that control all the parties within the network, and eventually help decentralize these decisions fully. So there is no central arbiter, but the network is fully independent and fully decentralized. It's a bit of a long-term vision. You can't go from 0 to 1 in this instance, overnight. But it's certainly exactly how we plan it to become.
And let's talk a little bit about who are the ultimate users of Impossible Cloud. Is it, other crypto companies? Who's using?
Super good question. And I think a question that many of our friends in the ecosystem have not really asked themselves deeply enough. So the way we kind of see the ecosystem evolving is that these early networks, they've built networks. Then there were the first Deepin networks. They were really focused only on hardware, and then some other new companies came along, or like networks came along, and said let's focus on demand. Why is it that for example, one of our investors, Protocol Labs, they have their project Filecoin. Filecoin is super amazing in many, many ways, but I think anyone that uses Filecoin or has any contact with it will agree their main problem is it's just not being used a lot. It's like a lot of the usage is incentivized within the network, and if you really, I think it's very hard to find a business that finds that actually uses Filecoin. And that's exactly where we said, let's start with that. Let's start with solving that problem right from the beginning. This is something we know really well out of our past. We know how to build a business. We know how to get business customers. And that's where we started. So who is using our product? Well, we've built a pretty strong muscle with a lot of distributors that distribute our cloud service, our storage service, to end customers. Actually, in many cases, the distributors sometimes distribute to another intermediary, like called managed service providers, that add some kind of management service on top of it. So you get people operating software, for example, on behalf of a company, and then they buy the storage from us. And this is kind of the ecosystem that already exists. And I think that really sets us apart from other projects within the Deepin space. We are plugging into this existing B2B ecosystem. And it's really not super simple to plug in there, but once you're in there, growth is nearly limitless. And I'm super happy we're just about to publish some business statistics. So we've increased the number of individual businesses on our platform in the last quarter from 200 to over 600 business customers. We've just in August, we surpassed the 1 billion object transactions on our platform. So business customers have uploaded or downloaded or deleted objects on our platform more than 1 billion times in the quarter in this last quarter, and we surpassed that number already in August. So we're still counting. Maybe we reach even double that in this quarter. Who knows? So I think that investment, 1.5 years of investment, trying to really get into this B2B space, finding distributors that really have all the end customers already, all the businesses that say run a backup or store a lot of data in the cloud, and connecting them with us. That is really paying dividends now, and we see pretty much all the business statistics explode. So it's a really great feeling. That's what I said earlier. That's right now it feels like being on that rocket ship, like where everything is like, yeah, we're taking off.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges you guys faced. Was it convincing partners to come on board to a new cloud provider? Was it like biz dev, marketing, or was it really like the technical challenge of setting up this like marketplace with service providers, hardware providers?
It's a bit of all of these things, to be honest. When we set out with this journey, we imagined the market to be much more accessible. It turns out, to really be able to sell to business clients and even more so to sell to distributors, you need a lot of access tools. You need a lot of tooling. It's not just enough to have storage in the cloud, but you have to have, tons of different APIs and tooling and portals, connections, integrations of software packages, and so on and so forth. So it's not as simple as just supporting one API or just we're setting out our own standards or something. It was quite a strong effort to get there and get this market compatibility.
So let's talk a little bit about like in terms of the technical challenges. Is like, hey, you need to have Salesforce integrated. You need to have like a Slack API, and people aren't going to want to just glue things together with Zapier.
You asked about the technical challenge. So technically, there was much more to develop than we originally thought, and also feature-wise, what businesses really require was a lot more than just storage. So, like for example, like user control and identity and access management are big topics. Like I knew kind of like back from my days at Good Game, but like I had underestimated how complex this topic is in itself. So, in 2022, I think we've built extensive suite, like a what's it called, part of the software that really does only IAM, like identity access management from all the levels. So the distributor distributes to his sub distributors, like resellers. The resellers have individual roles within their org. These roles they distribute to, like, say, an end customer. The end customer then has roles within org, and all of them are able to access or delete or view, different objects in different folders or buckets, as they're called, across different availability zones and so on and so forth. And then there's different versions of these things. It really took a lot longer than we originally thought. And that's just the business side of it. Now, we're of course launching a token because we want to build a decentralized network, and launching a token in itself, building that the Impossible Cloud network protocol, that in itself is like building a business as well. So for the last year at least, we feel like we are building two businesses at the same time. On the one hand side, we're building this growing cloud business, and have to build business development, have to do some sales, have marketing, and have this really go-to-market approach there, and all the engineering challenges I mentioned. On the other hand, we build a full Web3 company with all the functions within a Web3 company. We build a protocol, we develop all the code base there. So it's like building two companies at once. It's a fascinating challenge, but like not something that we originally anticipated quite as strongly and as intense.
Yeah, it seems like a very difficult problem to approach, and I very much sympathize with that. Talk to us a little bit about like the business development journey, because we haven't had. I mean, I guess we've had Nosan on, we have Avail on after this, but I feel like the business development side is quite tricky, because when we were working adjacent to cloud, those contracts become like very massive for companies. It's not necessarily easy for them to be like, hey, I'm just going to put like 25% of my Kubernetes on here. So talk to us a little bit like, is the sales cycle really long? What is that? What's like the business?
It can be, and it can be, and it's usually like for the first year, we thought, oh, now we can sell, but then we noticed, oh, we're still missing this, we're still missing that, we're still missing this integration, we're still missing that, and then once you've reached, I don't know, a lot of the things, the must-haves, then customers, of course, like it's being new in the market, then they have special demands and they have special ideas, and you start developing a little bit towards that, and then finally, once you have really all the must-haves, then you need to be more performant than all the competitors, because that's performance is actually something that it's the one thing that all the customers measure, it took us a long time to now be 10 times faster than many of the decentralized competitors, I think it's beyond the scale faster than Filecoin. But like also companies like, a decentralized company here in Europe is called Qubit. In our benchmarks and benchmarks of our customers, we're nearly 10 times faster than them. We are often, in some benchmarks, we're better even than some really specialized Web2 competitors. So this performance, getting our performance really, really strong for a lot of use cases took another real strong engineering push. And, just when you think you've made it, then you come across we recently had a backup provider. They provide backups for WordPress websites. So I think it's one of the largest in the world, a US company. And then they started testing our system with, I don't know, I think it was like 380 threads at a time with millions and millions of small, tiny files. And somewhat like new use case that we hadn't had. And we were super happy to see that like we are performing, and like all of our improvements, they really paid out. And that we could, that we are in a position to be able to win a customer, even a really demanding customer like that. And so that's wonderful. And now, because of all this having happened, the business tractions really being so strong, now is the time to really, scale horizontally in a network across the world, launch the token, that now is the right time.
Awesome. So now that we're talking about like launching the token and really doing that horizontal scaling, talk about how you envision the Impossible Cloud kind of contributing to the broader adoption of decentralized cloud infrastructure? Is the ultimate goal that these decentralized cloud providers like yourself are, the go-to option over an AWS, or is it largely that you're looking to better serve Web3 companies? Talk to us a little bit about like where the vision is.
No, I think it's absolutely that we become the cloud of choice for businesses, no matter from which. No, it really doesn't matter whether it's a Web3 business or Web2 business. Reality right now in the world is, of course, the majority of cloud spend is from Web2 type businesses. So that's what our focus is right now. And I think, that's the, like when I look at, the potential of the Deepin movement and the actual on-chain revenue, the on-chain revenue is tiny. And why is that the case? Because I think nearly all projects are missing like 99 and more % of the entire market, this B2B cloud users. And that's exactly where we want to go. That's why companies like AWS are so giant. So yes, the ultimate goal is to dethrone AWS, to establish a decentralized cloud that is larger and is the primary choice. To get there, it will take some time. Yeah, so AWS didn't become AWS overnight. I don't think we can dethrone them overnight. What it takes to get there is a super strong foundation. We have that technologically, then some horizontal scaling, and then scaling also multi-service. And I think it's ICN, like the Impossible Cloud Network, is an ecosystem where multiple service providers can really plug in and form a cohesive ecosystem. So, for example, we have just announced a partnership with Ether, or some people call it Ether, and they do GPU compute, also with the same kind of principles that many principles they share with us, like enterprise hardware in data centers and so on and so forth, enterprise customers, like B2B focus, like this partnership is not a small partnership. It's not a small deal. Not only because they have like a nearly $2 billion market cap and, God knows how many followers on all the channels and so on and so forth. But because, we really will be in a place very soon to offer all the cloud services that use storage and GPU compute in conjunction. So if we were to build this all ourselves, for GPU compute, for regular compute, for content delivery, for all the different cloud services, it would take us forever. But because we can forge partnerships and really build an ecosystem that then rivals AWS, I think we can be a little bit faster. And all the individual service providers within the ecosystem can really focus on their strengths. And we don't need to recreate this centralized monster of AWS.
Absolutely. So now let's talk a little bit about, like, you have some upcoming milestones coming up. We got a good feel for the company. We know there's a token launch coming up. So tell us a little bit about like what the community can look forward to from you guys.
Yeah, like actually quite a lot. Like the company's buzzing with new developments all the time. So what we're currently up to is like we've worked hard to establish a real pipeline of partnerships, like the one with Afir I just mentioned, and we are releasing those, over the social media channels and so on. But these partnerships, many of them are really much more meaningful than just a announcement. Like these are really forging the ecosystem at large, and what I described earlier, this challenge of you need to have an arbiter, some kind of mechanism that decides who all the nodes, all the hardware providers, all the service providers, they're actually doing as they're promising to do within the network. And if we were to build this ourselves and say we are the king of everything and we decide, that would not be a very good idea. That would be going back towards a centralized idea. So we're launching this network of Oracle nodes, and you can soon buy an NFT license to be part of that Oracle node network. So it's also a concept that has been pioneered, I think, also by Ether and some others, And we kind of looked into their playbook and said, this really makes sense. Here is an opportunity to build up a big community, to really have a lot of people participate in the network, be a lot more decentralized, and put a lot of the work that otherwise is kind of difficult to decentralize into the hands of many. And that's exactly what we're doing. So upcoming milestones for us are this node sale, this INO, I think it's sometimes called. We have a partnership with Impossible Finance to help us facilitate that. After this node sale, so there's going to be a public node sale then, I think, later this year. And after this node sale, maybe a month or two later, we aim to list the token on major exchanges. And that's, of course, in itself a big event, which everybody's looking forward tremendously.
Absolutely. And I know all the listeners will be looking forward to that as well. So finally, where can people connect with you personally online and learn more about Impossible Cloud? Shout out any social media, any kind of websites they should go to?
Sure. I mean, the website is icn.global. And on X, you can follow the protocol on ICN_protocol. So ICN_protocol. And I think the Discord is also ICN and then minus protocol, not underscore. And you could also look at our, impossiblecloud.com is how we go to market with our B2B product. So you could look at that. And, there's a blog on ICN.global where we, release pretty much news every week. Same goes for X, where we do a lot of participation campaigns, so that we get participants in our testnet, that we get participants in all of these actions, and of course participants that want to operate a node in the future Oracle node network. These are the ways to really interact. Me personally, you can reach out on on all of these platforms as well. Maybe the most reactive I will be on LinkedIn, because I'm a bit older. But of course also on Telegram and on X and so on.
Awesome. Well, everyone go engage with CK, go engage with Possible Cloud, and we look forward to, I must be developing a cold. We look forward to building more with you guys and looking and seeing what you guys are up to. So to everyone building the future Web3, let's get back to it.